Snowflakes danced in the pale morning light as Kathrine Miller unlocked the door to her small sewing shop. Tread of Grace. The wooden sign creaked softly in the cold wind. Inside, warmth bloomed from the tiny fireplace, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee mixed with fabric and thread. She smiled as two little voices called from the back room, "Mommy! Mommy! It's snowing again!" Kathrine turned, her heart melting at the sight of Ella and Emma, her twin girls, wearing matching pink coats she had sewn herself. Their cheeks were rosy, their blonde curls bouncing as they giggled and tried to catch snowflakes through the window. "Careful, girls," Kathrine said warmly. "You'll catch a cold before breakfast." At 26, Kathrine had the gentle beauty of someone who had loved deeply and suffered quietly. She wasn't rich, but every stitch she made carried a story. Every smile she gave hid a past few dared to ask about. 8 years ago, on a stormy night, she'd found the twins abandoned in front of her old shop, wrapped in a blanket with only a half-torn note that said, "Take care of them. I can't." She didn't know who had written it, or why someone would leave behind two babies with eyes as blue as the winter sky. But that night, her life had changed forever. She became their mother, no matter what blood said. That morning, the bell above the shop door rang softly. Kathrine turned, wiping her hands on her apron, and froze. Standing at the entrance was a tall man in a long, dark coat, his hair dusted with snow. His face carried both strength and sorrow, like a man who had seen the world and lost something precious along the way. Michael Davis, CEO of Davis Industries, one of the most powerful men in the city. He had everything a man could want, except peace. And today, for reasons he couldn't explain, his heart had pulled him to this quiet town. "Good morning," he said, his voice deep but gentle. "Do you do custom work here?" Kathrine blinked, gathering herself. "Yes, I do. Please come in, you look freezing." Michael stepped inside, his eyes wandering, until they landed on the two little girls playing by the window. His breath caught. The twins, their hair, their eyes, they looked exactly like... No, it couldn't be. Kathrine noticed his expression. "Those are my daughters, Ella and Emma," she said proudly. "They're my whole world." Michael smiled faintly, though his heart thudded in confusion. "They're beautiful," he murmured. "Thank you," Kathrine said softly, her eyes warm. "So, what kind of stitching do you need, Mr. Davis?" he replied after a pause. "Michael Davis." The name hit her like a ghost. It sounded familiar, distant yet sharp, as if from a dream she had long buried. She forced a polite smile. "Well, Mr. Davis, let's see what we can do." As they discussed fabric, Michael found himself watching the girls, their laughter, their identical dimples, the way one of them hummed a tune he hadn't heard in years. His chest tightened. 8 years ago, his wife had vanished with their newborn daughters after an argument. He had searched everywhere until the trail went cold. He'd assumed they were gone forever. Now, standing in that tiny shop, staring at those same eyes he once saw in his babies, Michael felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope. But he couldn't say anything yet, not until he was sure, not until he knew the truth. As he left the shop that morning, the twins ran to the door, waving. "Bye, mister," they said in unison. Michael turned back, smiling through the snow. "Goodbye, girls. I'll see you soon." And as his black car disappeared down the snowy road, Kathrine stood in the doorway, her heart strangely uneasy, because deep down, she felt something too, something she hadn't felt in years, a feeling that whispered, "This man will change everything." That evening, after Michael left, Kathrine sat by the fireplace, needle and thread in hand, but her mind miles away. Something about that man, Michael Davis, had unsettled her in a way she couldn't explain. His voice, his eyes. They carried a kind of ache that mirrored her own. She glanced at Ella and Emma, who were fast asleep on the couch, curled up like two angels. Their little hands clutched the same stuffed bunny she wrapped them in years ago when she first found them. She remembered that night, the rain, the cries, the broken note, the blood on the edge of the blanket. And that one detail she never forgot, a small silver cufflink lying beside them with the initials MD. She'd kept it hidden ever since. Kathrine stood, quietly walked to her old sewing cabinet, and opened the bottom drawer. There it was, the cufflink, wrapped in tissue paper, untarnished by time. She ran her fingers over the engraving and whispered to herself, "Who are you really, Mr. Davis?" Across town, Michael sat in his penthouse suite overlooking the frozen city. He couldn't shake the image of those little girls. Their smiles, their matching curls, the way one had tripped and the other had immediately helped her up. They were just like his daughters, the twins he'd lost 8 years ago. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, his hands trembling slightly. When he closed his eyes, he could still hear his late wife's voice. "They'll have your eyes, Michael, and your stubborn heart." But the past was still a wound. After the fight, she had taken the babies and vanished. Police searched for months, but no trace was found. Only silence, only guilt. Until now. The next morning, Michael returned to the little town, pretending he needed a suit mended. He watched the twins giggle as they helped their mother sort colorful ribbons. He couldn't take his eyes off them. At one point, Ella ran up to him, holding a bright red ribbon. "Look, mister, Mommy made us matching bows. Do you want one too?" Michael chuckled, kneeling down to her height. "You'd give me one of your special bows?" "Uh-huh," she said proudly. "Because you look sad." The simple innocence in her voice shattered something inside him. He blinked back tears and smiled. "Thank you, little one." Kathrine watched from behind the counter, her chest tightening at the sight. The way he spoke to the girls, the tenderness in his tone, it was like he already knew them. When Michael stood to leave, he hesitated at the door. "Miss Miller, do you happen to know where the girls came from? They look so much like—" He stopped himself. Kathrine's face went pale. "No," she lied softly. "They were abandoned. That's all I know." Michael nodded slowly, though his instincts screamed otherwise. As he stepped out into the cold, his phone buzzed. It was his private investigator, James Carter. "Sir, I've looked into that woman you mentioned. Kathrine Miller. She's been living in Willowbrook for 8 years. Before that, there's nothing. No record of adoption papers, no hospital birth certificates for those twins. It's like they appeared out of nowhere." Michael's grip on the phone tightened. "Find out everything. I need to know who those girls really are." That night, as the snow fell harder, Kathrine sat by the window staring into the darkness. She could sense the storm coming, not just in the sky, but in her life. Her heart whispered a truth she'd buried for years. If Michael Davis ever found out the twins were his, he might take them away. And she wasn't ready to lose her daughters, not again.
The winter deepened over Willowbrook, blanketing every roof and pine tree in a quiet white hush. Inside her little shop, Kathrine worked later than usual that evening, her sewing machine humming softly beneath the dim light. But her hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the fear slowly settling in her heart. It had been 3 days since Michael Davis had returned to her shop, and something in his eyes had changed. Gone was the polite businessman looking for a tailor. Now there was curiosity, suspicion, and something she feared most, recognition. Across town, in a luxury lodge overlooking the frozen lake, Michael sat at his desk, staring at a photograph on his laptop screen. It was the image his investigator, James Carter, had sent him an hour ago. A faded picture from a local orphanage's archives. 2 newborns, identical twins, wrapped in a familiar floral blanket. Underneath, written in smudged ink, was the name of the person who'd brought them in, Kathrine Miller. Michael's pulse quickened. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. "So she did find them," he whispered. But then another photo arrived, one that made his heart stop completely. It was of the cufflink, his cufflink, found in the same basket as the baby's. Michael's chest tightened, his throat burned. That single piece of silver was the last thing he'd seen the night his wife left. She'd stormed out after their fight, clutching both babies and a suitcase. He'd searched for her for months, but her car had been found wrecked near a riverbank. No bodies were ever recovered. And now, 8 years later, his daughters were alive, and being raised by the woman who'd saved them. The next morning, the doorbell at Tread of Grace jingled again. Kathrine looked up. Her breath caught. It was him. Michael entered, his expression unreadable, snow melting on his black coat. He placed a small box on the counter between them. "You dropped this once," he said quietly. Kathrine frowned and opened it, only to freeze. Inside was the cufflink. Her fingers went numb. The world blurred. "Where did you get this?" "I could ask you the same," he replied, his voice tight. "This belonged to me. It was the only thing missing the night my wife disappeared." Kathrine's lips trembled. "Michael, Don't," he interrupted softly, though his voice cracked with emotion. "Just tell me the truth, Kathrine. Those girls, are they—" Tears welled in her eyes. She tried to speak, but the weight of the years crushed her words. "I found them by the bridge that night. It was raining. I thought they were abandoned. I didn't know who they belonged to." Michael's eyes glistened. "You mean, you've had my daughters all this time?" Kathrine nodded slowly, unable to hold back her sobs. "I raised them as my own. I loved them every single day. They're all I have, Michael." For a long moment, silence hung heavy between them. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, time seemed to stop. Michael looked down, jaw clenched, tears threatening to spill. "You saved them," he said finally. "You gave them a life I couldn't." But then he looked up, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "Please, Kathrine, let me be part of it again. Let me be their father." That night, after he left, Kathrine stood by the window, watching him disappear into the snowy street. Her heart was torn in two, between gratitude and fear, because deep down she knew this was just the beginning. If the world discovered who those little girls really were, the heirs to the Davis fortune, their peaceful life in this quiet town would never be the same again.
The first rays of dawn painted the town of Willowbrook in pale gold. Snowflakes glittered like diamonds on rooftops as the small world around Tread of Grace slowly awakened. But inside the little seamstress shop, the air was heavy, too quiet, too still. Kathrine stood by the window holding 2 mugs of cocoa. The twins, Ella and Grace, were still asleep in their little beds upstairs, blissfully unaware that their lives were about to change forever. Her thoughts were a whirlwind. Michael's words from the night before echoed endlessly in her mind. "Please, Kathrine, let me be part of it again. Let me be their father." Her heart ached. For 8 years she had been their only parent, their comfort, their shield, their home. And now, suddenly, the man who shared their blood wanted them back. She knew he had every right, but she also knew love wasn't written in blood. It was sown, thread by thread, in sleepless nights, lullabies, and sacrifices. That same morning the storm began, not of snow, but of flashing cameras. A black car stopped in front of the shop, then another. Within minutes, reporters crowded the narrow street, shouting questions. "Miss Miller, is it true you've been raising the missing Davis twins? Did you know they were the children of CEO Michael Davis? Are you planning to give them up?" Kathrine froze. She hadn't even told the girls yet. Her hands shook as she locked the door, closing the blinds while her heart pounded in her chest. An hour later, Michael arrived. His car pushed through the crowd as he stormed inside, his face pale. "Who told them?" Kathrine whispered, eyes wide. He shook his head. "It wasn't me. Someone from the orphanage must have leaked the records." The twins peeked from the stairs, sleepy, confused. "Mommy, why are there people outside?" little Grace asked, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Kathrine turned, forcing a smile through her trembling lips. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just some people who made a mistake." But her eyes met Michael's, and she saw the guilt written there. The damage was done. The world knew. By afternoon, they were sitting together at her small wooden table, the same one where she stitched their school uniforms and birthday dresses. Michael's voice was low, heavy with regret. "I never wanted this to happen. I just wanted to know them, to see them safe." Kathrine looked down at her hands. "They are safe here. But your world isn't safe for children, Michael. The money, the press, the lies. They'll destroy them." He exhaled slowly, eyes softening. "Then let me make it right. Let me protect them with you, not from you." She blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to take them away. I want us to build something together. You raised them with love. Something money never gave me." He paused, voice trembling. "Maybe they deserve both of us." For the first time in weeks, Kathrine's tears weren't from fear, but from hope. That evening, they stood outside the shop as the sun melted into the snowy horizon. The twins played in the snow, laughing as Michael helped them build a crooked snowman. Kathrine watched from a few feet away. The man she once feared was now smiling, his expensive coat dusted with snow, his heart finally unguarded. He looked up and caught her gaze. "You saved them," he said softly. "But you also saved me." She smiled faintly. "I think. We saved each other." And as the church bells of Willowbrook rang through the cold air, the little family that destiny had torn apart once found its way back together, not through blood or wealth, but through the simplest, strongest thread of all, love.